It's ironic. The man who made the world laugh by playing awkward dads and dysfunctional sons is now being called out by his own children. Ben Stiller, the face of comedy, the Hollywood legend behind Zoolander, Meet the Parents, and Night at the Museum, is being forced to face something no movie role could ever prepare him for: his real life. Because in his new documentary, Stiller and Meara, Nothing is Lost, Ben opens up the one door he's kept closed for decades, his own family life. And what comes out of that door is raw, painful, and shockingly honest. His kids, Ella and Quinn, didn't hold back. They told him, on camera, that they barely remember him being around when they were growing up. And for the first time, the funny man of Hollywood couldn't hide behind a punchline. The moment that shattered the smile. The documentary was supposed to be about Ben's famous parents, Jerry Stiller and Meara, one of the greatest comedy duos of all time. But halfway through filming, something shifted. The laughter faded. And suddenly, the story became about Ben himself, and the kind of father he had become. In one scene, Ben sits across from his son Quinn, the camera catching every flicker of guilt on his face. He asks his son if he ever felt like Ben wasn't there. And Quinn's answer is calm but devastating. He says, "Sometimes it felt like being a dad wasn't at the top of your priorities." Ben doesn't argue. He doesn't deflect. He just stares, silent, the kind of silence that says more than any script ever could. Moments earlier, Ben revealed something even more heartbreaking. His daughter, Ella, had told him, "I literally can't ever remember you being around when I was growing up." For a man who spent his life creating stories about family chaos, this was real chaos. And this time, he wasn't the director. The Stiller legacy, born into fame, raised by pressure. To understand Ben's confession, you have to go back to where it all started. Ben Stiller wasn't just a Hollywood kid, he was born into it. His parents, Jerry Stiller and Meara, were icons. They performed on television together for decades, a comedy powerhouse. But behind the laughs, there were sacrifices, long nights, constant rehearsals, career obsession. And little Ben grew up watching his parents choose work, again and again, over family dinners or vacations. He once said that being around his parents felt like living inside a show that never stopped filming. And in a cruel twist of fate, he grew up to repeat that same cycle, the spotlight always brighter than the living room lamp. While directing blockbusters and chasing perfection, Ben didn't realize he was becoming what he once resented. A man whose kids watched him disappear into work. When fame becomes a cage. By the 2000s, Ben Stiller was everywhere. Meet the Parents, Tropic Thunder, Zoolander, Night at the Museum, one hit after another. From the outside, it looked like success. Inside? It was a slow emotional collapse. Every interview, every press junket, every premiere, it was the same smile, the same voice, the same jokes. But off camera, his real family barely saw him. Quinn describes it in the documentary perfectly. When you're in that place, when something's wrong or when you're stuck in your own head, it's hard to get you out of it. That would kind of put a damper on the fun part of being on vacation. Imagine that, your own child saying vacations weren't fun because you couldn't emotionally show up. That's the hidden cost of fame, not burnout, not paparazzi, but the moment your family stops expecting you to show up. The marriage that nearly broke. Through all of this was Christine Taylor, Ben's wife, and the quiet heart of the Stiller family. They met in 1999, married in 2000, and became one of Hollywood's most adored couples. Fans saw them as a perfect match, both actors, both funny, both grounded. But behind closed doors, things weren't picture perfect. As Ben's career exploded, Christine held the family together, school runs, birthdays, bedtime stories. While Ben was on set directing or flying between continents, Christine was doing the invisible work that made the Stiller household function. Eventually, the emotional distance became too wide to ignore. In 2017, after 17 years of marriage, they quietly separated. No drama, no tabloid fights, just two people who couldn't find each other anymore. Ben later admitted that the split forced him to confront who he'd become. He said, "You just have to want to be together and want to make it work. It's about valuing the relationship." It took losing his marriage, and almost his family, for him to realize what mattered most. Generational ghosts. Ben's story isn't just about parenting. It's about patterns, the kind that haunt families for generations. Jerry Stiller was a comedic genius, but even Ben admitted that his father could be distant. And Meara, his mother, was strong and sharp but often emotionally unavailable when work consumed her. Ben grew up around laughter that sometimes hid exhaustion, around applause that replaced affection. And without even realizing it, he carried that blueprint into his own fatherhood. Hollywood calls it legacy. But sometimes, legacy is just trauma in disguise. The documentary, Turning Pain into Reflection. When Ben began working on Stiller and Meara, Nothing is Lost, he thought he was archiving his parents' story. He didn't expect it to turn into his own emotional reckoning. The film dives deep into old family footage, VHS tapes, reel-to-reel audio, handwritten scripts. Ben admits he used to roll his eyes at his dad for saving all that junk. Now, he sees it differently. He says, "It annoyed us so much when we were kids. But there's something valuable about saving physical memories, especially now that everything's digital. It's history you can hold." For Ben, those tapes became more than memorabilia, they became mirrors. Each clip reminded him of how fast time moves, how easily moments slip away when you're too busy filming new ones. And that's what makes the documentary's title, Nothing is Lost, so haunting. Because for years, Ben thought he'd lost the chance to be a good father. Now, he's trying to prove that it's never too late to be found. The internet reacts, brutal honesty or Hollywood redemption? The documentary hit the New York Film Festival, and immediately, social media lit up. Clips of Ben's son calling him out went viral. Tweets read, "Ben Stiller getting called out by his kids hit harder than any of his movies." It's rare to see a Hollywood dad admit this level of guilt. Some praised his courage. Others said it was too little, too late. But what made the moment powerful was its truth. In an industry built on scripts and image control, Ben Stiller did the unthinkable. He let the camera catch him being imperfect. No PR filter. No punchline. Just pain. Rebuilding from the inside out. Since the documentary, Ben's been rebuilding. He and Christine Taylor reconciled quietly during the pandemic, moving back in together after years apart. And this time, he says, the priority isn't fame, it's family. He spends more time at home. He attends events with his daughter, Ella, now in her 20s and finding her own place in the entertainment world. When asked if he gives her career advice, Ben laughs and says, "She's usually the one giving me advice." That's the full circle moment, the father who once didn't listen, now learning from his kids. The hidden cost of being the funny guy. For decades, Ben Stiller made millions laugh by playing men who couldn't get life right, the awkward son, the insecure husband, the overcompensating dad. But the tragedy is, those roles weren't fiction. They were a reflection. He said in interviews that comedy was always his shield, a way to control how people saw him. But shields eventually crack. And when they do, all that's left is the truth you were trying to hide. Ben's truth is simple. He was scared to slow down. Scared that if he stopped working, he'd fade away. But now, he realizes that missing your kid's childhood hurts more than missing a role. The lesson behind the laughter. At its core, Stiller and Meara, Nothing is Lost isn't a comedy. It's a confession. It's about how fame can make you lose sight of the people who matter most, and how love can still bring you back. Ben Stiller's kids didn't just call him out. They called him back. Back to being present. Back to being real. Back to being a father, not just a filmmaker. And maybe that's the irony of it all, the man who built a career out of making dysfunctional families funny had to face his own dysfunction to find peace. Ben once said, "You just have to want to make it work." And maybe that's the point. Because sometimes, in Hollywood, success means being seen by millions. But real success? is being remembered by the few who truly matter. And for Ben Stiller, it looks like nothing is lost after all.